Hi everyone, my name is Lottie. I'm here just to give you a quick politics lesson. That's going to be on one of my personal favourite topics, which is constitutions. So my first question for you is, what do you think a constitution is? What does that word, constitution, mean to you? So I have an image here that might be helpful to some of you if you're not quite sure where to start. So this is a lot of words that people associate with the word constitution when they're thinking about it. Some of the ones that might stand out that I'll point out are authority and law, amendment and government. So in the simplest terms, a constitution is basically a set of rules that guides how a country is governed, and those rules may come up in certain ways, and that'll differ between countries. So in today's lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to just have a quick exploration of some of the key differences between the constitutions of the United States and the United Kingdom. So first of all, what we'll start off with is the US's constitution, as you can see here, is what you would consider codified. So that means it's written in a single document, and it's been in a single document since 1787. And it's that single document that outlines the structure and power of the United States government. The UK, however, our constitution is uncodified. Not necessarily unwritten, it just means it's not in a single document. So it's made up of statutes and conventions and traditions, and then also long-standing legal documents and precedents such as the Magna Carta. That leads us into how the US Constitution, because it's in a single document, it is very heavily entrenched. So it's very specific, it's rigid, it's difficult to amend. Any kind of amendment requires a supermajority, so a vote where 2/3 of Congress and 3/4 of states need to agree to it. It's very difficult to achieve, which is why only 27 amendments have been made to date. But the UK Constitution, on the other hand, the fact that it's uncodified lends it a lot of flexibility. It's very easy to amend. Any kind of change requires just a simple parliamentary majority. So it's any act of parliament, basically. And there's been so many, far more than 27, as would be in the US's case. The entrenched and codified nature of the US Constitution also really enhances the fact that it's there to ensure checks and balances. So there's a very clear separation of powers between the executive, which is the president, Congress as the legislature, and the Supreme Court as the judiciary. So what that means is that each power in governance has very specific roles, and they can't impinge on one another. So they're there to hold one another accountable, basically. In the UK, however, though, Parliament as the legislature has supreme legal authority, or rather parliamentary sovereignty. So while the executive or the cabinet and Supreme Court as the judiciary, they are able to influence certain decisions, they're not able to ultimately override any decision that Parliament makes. The US, on the other hand, the judiciary, for example, because of this thing here, the Bill of Rights, can strike down any decision made by the executive or legislature as unconstitutional because it's very clear. It's codified, it's entrenched. So the Bill of Rights basically is the first 10 amendments of the Constitution. So they are an explicit protection of individual rights, such as the freedom of speech. The UK, we don't really have anything like that. Our understanding of rights, constitutionally or legally, it's not outlined in a single document or a set of amendments. It's protected by the rule of law and statutes. So Acts of Parliament, legal precedents such as habeas corpus, which are to do with rights when you're detained, things like that. We also take a lot from the UN and the EU's understanding of human rights as well. So that is one of the reasons why a lot of people think that we should move towards a codified and entrenched constitution in the UK and completely upheave the system that we have so far, because people feel that, especially after Brexit, there isn't enough protections for our rights because they're not even clearly defined. So that's one debate that you might want to have a think about. So why do you think these kinds of changes arise? Why are there so many kinds of differences in constitutions between states? What that comes down to is, overall, the US's constitution is revolutionary and formal, while the UK's is evolutionary and flexible. The US is developed following the American Revolution and it's heavily based on ideas of autonomy and independence. But in the UK, it developed evolutionary in a political climate that's more focused on reform rather than radical change. And I will just mention as well, this list is by no means exhaustive. There's tens and tens more differences between the constitutions that are worth having a look at. These are just the ones that are the most striking, basically. So what I want you to consider after this is, out of the differences listed, what do you think are the most important differences, and why? What would you use to justify that being the biggest difference to you personally? And then can you think of another country with a revolutionary constitution? And next time we meet, do you think you can maybe describe what circumstances did that revolutionary constitution come about from? Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed the lesson today, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.